In this episode, I'm going to show how to do shower pops very quickly so that you can turn something that looks like this and turn it into this, and we'll do a second one also that looks like this and turn it into this. Now, shower pops are for more than just highlighting the feature of a shower, which is very important. If it's a high-end shower with glass doors, it will also help reduce the reflection so that you don't see your tripod or yourself in that glass. These work best if you are shooting a glass shower that has an overhead light so that it has a little bit of realism to it. That won't matter so much because we're going to be able to control it. That's part of the process that I'm going to be going through in this video. But this is something that's critical if you want to make yourself stand out. I can tell you from shooting literally thousands of homes for hundreds of clients, my clients do love to see those shower pops. It does make it look a lot more professional, and you can control to the extent that you would like this to be displayed. So without further ado, let's get into this and see how this is done. So here's the first example that we're going to step through. This is finished. To get to this point though, I'm going to show how it was quickly shot with hardly any time on site, and then how this is edited in post. We're going to do the same thing for a more complex one then once we go to this second example. So going through the flambient workflow, we shot our ambient shot here, and you can see that there was quite a reflection of the tripod in that shower glass. We took the flash shot to be able to get our correct colors, and we've got just other reflections going on, and neither shot really did much to highlight that shower. So we need to add a shower pop. Now, little added bonus here, when I was flashing here, I got a reflection of bloom up here reflecting in the mirror. So in those cases, I just step into the bathroom, take another shot. Anyways, once you're taking these shots of a bathroom, you know what flash power you're going to be using because that looks good. You're exposing to the right on the flash shot, hopefully on your histogram. So what you do is you lower your flash power a couple of ticks, and then you start popping. And what you'll do is you'll adjust your flash power with your thumb here on that thumb wheel of the speed light, and preferably, or if you're using some other light that you have quick access to with your thumb, and then hold your trigger, tuck it into your side so that your elbow doesn't exceed out into the glass, and then start firing away. You fire, then you up your flash power, fire, up your flash power, fire, up your flash power, fire. And this is the one I decided to use. You go to the other side and do the reverse process. So the ones that I liked ended up being the brightest ones of the bunch here, and that's what we're going to use. Even though they look a little bit bright, we're going to be able to control how much of this is shown. So this is another reason too why I don't like using a Cam Ranger or other apps. I already know where my flash power should be, and I can fire these off in succession. The whole process takes probably 1 minute at most to do both sides. Anyways, let's now take these over into Photoshop and see how this then is edited. Loaded into Photoshop as layers, we can see the full flambient stack with an ambient layer at the top, which is set to luminosity mode. In this case, I set it to 60% opacity and then just deleted some of that luminance off of the mask. If you're not familiar with this process of doing the flambient blending, I would suggest downloading my ebook on interior photography. I have a link to that down in the description for this video, as well as other pertinent information, including portions of my real estate photography series that also covers shower pops. Anyways, moving along here, underneath of here, we can see that there is the flash shot here. I did add the repair so that I could get rid of this little portion here. This is what it would look like fully. So I just masked that portion in and then added that flambient. So the flambient portion is done. That's not a problem, but we can see that we don't have a good shower pop over here. So what we have then, just to recap, is we've got two shower pops. We've got this one and we have this one here. So the first shower pop we're going to take up all the way to the top, and you can do that by doing Shift Control right bracket, or you can just drag it up if you want. Next, we want to add a layer mask. We want to go up to the layer menu. There's a lot of ways to do this. I use keyboard shortcuts using the menus, but it's basically layer, layer mask, and then hide all. Next, we want to zoom in here and use the polygon lasso tool. So I've selected that up here, and what I like to do is draw around not just the glass, but also the tile, because we're going to control how much of this is shown wherever. And we can overlap onto a variety of stuff. Like here, I'm overlapping onto that handle. I'm going to come over here, I'm going to overlap onto that toilet in more than one place. I'm going to also overlap onto these shelves, and we're going to be able to take care of that with ease with no problem with what Photoshop has available. I'm going to zoom out. With that mask selected, I'm going to reverse the colors so that they're black and white, not white and black. You can press X on your keyboard to do that and press the delete key. Reverse your colors back by pressing X. Now take the other shower pop from the other side, bring that all the way up to the top, and add another layer mask to hide everything. Now take the brush tool and use a 100% flow and a 100% opacity. So we'll change that to 100, 100. Now with that, with the colors at white and black, you can then brush yourself out. So now you disappear from that other shower pop. The boundary defined by that polygon tool made sure that we didn't overlap onto the floor, the ceiling, or anything else, only within the bounds of where we drew this shower pop. Now you can change the brush flow to about 30%, and if you wanted to, you could refine it. We did a pretty good job here, we don't have to worry about that. So next, do Control D to deselect it all. Now for refining the shower pop. What we want to do is group these into layers. So you can grab both of those, right-click, and say Group from Layers. I'll call this Pops. Then add a layer mask. You can go Layer, Mask, and you want a Reveal All layer mask. Because what we're going to do is delete off this layer mask. What we want to first do is get some of these more salient objects out of here. So select another layer. Take the quick selection tool. In this case, like for the toilet, I would just use the quick selection tool here, and then clicking around the toilet, you can see it selected that fairly well. So you go up here to then the layer mask and press the delete key. Deselect by doing Control D. Now there's a few other ones that are a little bit trickier here. For instance, where this is on here. So you can try the quick selection tool. You could try a polygon. You can also merely take an eraser tool and maybe just erase some of that so that it blends in a little bit more. Because once again, we're in control of how much this is going to pop. That tile wouldn't have as much light on it anyways, so you can control that to what extent you'd like. Now let's take a look at the trickier part and some new Photoshop tools that will help us get rid of where we overlapped onto these particular shelves. This won't always be the case. This is a difficult one. That's why I selected it, to show you a variety of tools you can use. You want to go up to the Quick Selection tool up here, and instead of just Quick Selection tool, select Object Selection tool. Then doesn't matter really where you are, as long as you have this check mark of Sample All Layers turned on at the very top, you can draw a rectangle around a shelf. So we can draw a rectangle, for instance, around this shelf. Sure enough, it did a pretty good job of selecting that shelf, so now we can just press the delete key. We'll do the same thing for the other shelf down here by just dragging a rectangle over top of it with that Object Selection tool, which did a really good job of selecting that shelf, and then just delete that out of there, and then Control D to deselect. If you've never used that Object Selection tool, be aware that it does take some horsepower out of your CPU to do it, so it does take a little bit of a delay. Anyways, now let's refine this even further. Let's take the eraser tool, and we can just simply erase a few things like this around this doorknob. It doesn't matter that we overlap into the shower. It doesn't need to be extremely bright everywhere. But now for the bigger one. So it might look a little unnatural with some of the glass selected. So what you can do is take the eraser at a very large size, flow of around 30%, and with the edge of the eraser just dipping into here a little bit, maybe erase some of that. You can also put yourself a little vignette around it to make it appear as though that center light was shining down. So you erase a little bit more from the corners than you would from the top, and you get that more realistic look. When this was all said and done, the final image looked like this. Here's our second example. This is the finished shot. It's very similar in some ways, but this one will actually go a lot quicker, and this is going to be more typical of what you would find. As I step through this, you'll see why. This was our ambient shot. When I went over here to flash it, that was our flash shot. And then of course I did these in succession. I tried to do a whole bunch of bounces. You can see here, it just wasn't bouncing very well. So what I ended up doing was bouncing off of the white tiles. You can see here, I'm just hitting that edge of the white tile so I get somewhat of a bounce inside there. But each one of these, was done at a different flash power. So I'd adjust the flash power, I'd hit it, adjust the flash power, hit it, and I keep doing that in succession. You can see that then I finally got a couple that I did like that I decided to use. So let's go ahead and open those as layers in Photoshop. Here the flambient blending has been done, so now we have our two shower pops, this one and this one. So we'll take the first one and take it all the way up to the top. So it's the first layer, layer, mask, hide. Now in this it's very simple, and all you have to do is draw a polygon around here, but we're going to see an issue once we do. So let's draw a polygon just around the glass. Now if you overlap things like the handles here, it's not going to matter. There's enough light that's shining on those, you won't notice a difference. So don't worry about getting too accurate with that. Plus, we tend to erase a little bit around some of the edges to make it look more realistic. So once again, you won't have to worry about that either. So we'll just finish off this last polygon here. And there we go. We'll reverse our colors over here to black and white instead of white and black by pressing X. On the mask up here for that shower pop, press the delete key. Reverse our colors by pressing X, deselect, Control D. Now, before we deselected that, there was still a problem, and we shouldn't have, because you can see here there's a little reflection of me. So, and if we go up here, we can see there's even a little bit more. There's my arm, and it's reflecting from when I was standing off to the side, reflecting into there. So that's pretty much a no-go. We need to edit that out. So you can go back here, and before we deselected, just go up here to that step, so it's all selected again, or I could have also done a control click on the mask to select it as well. Let's take that other shower pop, move it up to the top, layer, mask, hide. Now we can go into those areas and using a brush at just even 30% flow if we wanted to, and brush those areas in. We can also go back out here and see if that helped anywhere else. Did it help maybe light up over here? Well, let's add that in there as well. Now we do Control D to deselect all of it. Now we've got a pretty good looking shower pop. Once again, take both of those, you can group them into one particular group, add a layer mask so that you reveal everything, and then decide to erase out of that anything that you want. Probably erased a little too much, so in this case I wouldn't erase too much out of it, maybe just a little bit off the corners down here because the light wouldn't reach that far normally, and there we go. So that was that shower pop, and you can see in this case that really did eliminate that shadow out of here that we were getting from our ambient layer. So the finished product, when it was all said and done, looked like this. But let's say, for instance, in that case, I did have white tile to bounce. You can see for this particular finished shot up here, once again, I had a colored ceiling. This was a unicolor house, I like to call that, because the ceilings, the walls, they're all painted the same color. Different color schemes, maybe in different rooms, like in this case, made from the same palette, but they are that way. Now, I might have been able to bounce the flash off of the white tile. Bit of a risky proposition because it was still close to these very castable colors. So what I did was just merely adjust it in post. So here you can see I'm flashing up top, I adjust my power down. This one looks about right because what I ended up doing before I sent it over into Photoshop, it would look like this. So then I adjusted it so that the temperature, you watch the sliders up here, went from 4614 down to about 3914. So you can adjust that yourself. Now we could have even cooled that off further if we wanted to, whatever you feel is more appropriate. When you're shooting off of a colored ceiling, basically what you're doing is you're gelling your flash. So you're gonna get that same color cast throughout that shower, and you just change that. There's another little trick though that I would like to share with you real quick before we finish this up. And that's that you don't always have to do two-sided shower pops. Sometimes they go even quicker. So this was one of those cases. Here you can see there's the ambient shot. I've got my reflection of the tripod in there. This was my flash shot, all kinds of reflections going on. But when I did the shower pops, I could stand off to the side enough and pop it. So that worked really well for me. Now, I did have in this case a reflection of the tripod, so that was edited out using the healing brush tool. But the idea here is that I was able to stand out of the way, no reflections in sight. But what did I end up doing just out of habit? I just ended up walking to the other side and doing the same thing. The reason being is because it goes so quick. You just pop, change, pop, change, pop, change. And you just go back to your camera and you move on to the next room. It goes very, very quick. But no matter what, when you see glass doors on a shower, they will benefit to some degree from doing a shower pop. They will make you stand out. They will make these showers look a lot better. I do highly recommend them. They're extremely fast to shoot on site. A little bit of work sometimes in post-processing, but the results are worth it.